To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
The magic is calling, calling, calling us. It's calling, calling, calling us to the place where all of our dreams come true. The most magical place on earth. Answer the call. Feel the magic everywhere. Bring every dream we dream to life. Share the wonder, share the light. Oh, imagine a world for you and me. Where all that we have to do is believe. The magic is calling, calling, calling us. It's calling, calling, calling us to the place where all of our dreams come true. The most magical place on earth. Answer the call. The magic is calling, calling, calling us. It's calling, calling, calling us to the place where all of our dreams come true. The most magical place on earth. Magical place on earth. Magical place on
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of One Night Only Celebrating the Arts. Tonight, we sit down with an internationally known author and Disney historian, and this is going to be a great night to celebrate the magic that Walt brings to you through the hands of others. Welcome in, everybody. Let's get the opening started so we can get to our incredible guest tonight. I always start out by saying, hey, thank you personally to our good friend over at the Live Place, recognizing over 150 family-friendly channels over there. He could be your TV guide for viewing here on YouTube. I personally acknowledge my partner channels and thank them for everything we do. I thank our chaotic crusaders who support our channel in-depthly and deeply. You can find all of their links on the front of my YouTube page. I'm also grateful to our executive producers bringing you content from all over the world. We just posted a video from Disney France last night. We did California today. It's Florida tomorrow. We've got product and content coming to you from all over the world. We're very excited to partner with the media partners at Chip and
The official Disney-related news service and partner of the Pete McDevitt Show is Chip & Company. You can find this trusted source at chipandco.com or on many social media outlets including YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
We're very excited about the One Night Only segment, and next week we're bringing another great author in that is absolutely incredible. The man behind the hidden Mickeys is coming to the channel, and it is going to be Stephen M. Barrett. Stephen M. Barrett will be coming into the channel next Thursday, and I am getting texts like crazy. People are excited for this guest tonight. Already sending me questions. Hang tight, guys. We'll get them into the chat. So next week, Stephen M. Barrett coming to the channel, everybody, and that'll be a good time. So make sure you put it on your calendar to join us next week on Tuesday, Celebrating the Arts. My guest tonight is one person who is incredibly talented. Jim Fanning is an internationally published author, writer, and Disney historian. He's a leading authority on Walt Disney, and his legacy has written on all aspects of Disney, including animation, theme parks, television, live action, publications, collectibles, and the Walt Disney magic directly coming through his talented hands. His colleagues, as well as he, and all of the contemporary artists, filmmakers, and Imagineers, he's talked about all of them. He has served as a co-editor and head writer for Sketches. That's one of the official Disney magazines for the Walt Disney Collectors Society. His articles have appeared in publications such as The Hollywood Reporter, the Disney Magazine, Disney Newsreel, The Comic Buyer's Guide, and persistence of vision. He's a regular contributor to D23, the official fan club of Disney. I know I don't have to tell you guys that. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the channel for the first time, sitting down with us for one night only, please welcome in Jim Fanning to the channel. Jim, welcome in.
Thanks so much, Pete. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Lovely Burbank, California. You got nicer weather than I do. But hey, that's a good thing. The sun's always shining out there. I guess with jumping in, I know people are excited. My phone was going off. We got people already saying, hey, I did a thumbs up for this channel and this interview. Thank you, Nicole. We appreciate that. So many people coming in. People are welcoming you in the channel. They're coming in saying, welcome, Jim. I love this. My phone was going off with text messages of people saying, make sure you ask him about this. So I love the fact that your people are excited that you're here. I guess let's start out for everybody that might be finding you for the first time. Let's just talk just in general what you like to share in general. We'll kind of dig into all your works, your publications and all that, but just an overview of Jim Fanning for anybody who might be brand new to you.
Well, as you said, I am a writer and an author and a Disney historian, although I love all kinds of other things too, anything pop culture, movies, TV, comics, animation of all kinds.
Yes.
And I've been very blessed my whole life to be able to write about and celebrate the things that I love. So I feel like, a real lucky guy.
Nice.
I have been involved with many, many different Disney projects. In recent years, a lot of what I've written is for publication overseas.
Okay.
So the only drawback to that is that people in this country, well, we're in the United States.
Right.
I'm sure we have from all over.
Yes.
Because this is the World Wide Web. So
Yes.
But for people in the United States, they don't often get to see what I do for the most part, because I write for publications in Japan, in France, and all over the world. But thanks to D23, some of my work is out there and easily accessible, especially on d23.com, because that's easy to access. And if you go on d23.com, if you just search my name, some of the articles that I've written for them come up. And
well, I love when I have an author on, because an author sitting in with an interview will transition your show for you before you're even ready. Jim, let's talk about that since we're right there. Let's talk about D23 and jump right into it. By the way, I should remind everybody, same as usual, friends, as you're watching today, if you have a question for our guest and you have the number to the studio and you'd like to call in, you're more than welcome to prove to do so. If not, you're more than welcome to jump right in at Pete McDevitt Show into the chat, and I will bring them up on the board and we'll ask our guest tonight. You've done a lot of writing for D23. I was really impressed with the amount of content available. Could you just talk about kind of how that came about, what people will find over there? And again, you can find this, everybody. Links for everything are directly in the body of the video. Jim, I'll turn it to you.
Well, thanks. I've been lucky enough to be involved with D23 from the start. As most people know, it started in 2009.
Yes.
So it's been a while. And I think that came about because of my association with the archives. Now, sometimes you'll hear people say that I work for the archives. I do not. I'm not a staff member, but I've done a tremendous amount of research there because I'm working on primarily official Disney projects. So when you're doing that, and especially the kind of work I do, which is mostly historical, then the archives is part of that process. So the whole gang at the archives have been wonderful friends and supporters of mine. And of course, the archives is very closely associated with D23.
Mm-hmm.
So D23 celebrates all things Disney from 1923 on, as most people know. That's where the 23 comes from.
Correct.
So history is a big part of it, and I'm lucky that I'm one of the people that they've turned to write contemporary articles too, but a lot of history.
So obviously, as you sat there, we're talking about the archives. You've been there and involved there.
Yes.
I gotta ask you, when as a Disney historian, but also as a Disney fan, and all of us have that little kid in us that sits back at one point with Disney and goes, "Oh wow." What was you had to have a couple oh wow moments in the archives, being having exposure to things that other people didn't. Is there stuff that you've seen that you're like, "Oh wow, I can't believe I just put my eyes on that."
Oh, all the time. I'm primarily dealing with documents and memos, and
That's
uh,
still cool. That's very cool.
so it's not always the sexiest, as they say, not always the. But for me, as a historian, it's thrilling seeing uh, pieces of paper that Walt Disney touched, or
Yes.
uh, that correspondence that went from him to someone else, or vice versa. Or certainly for a lot of the classic animated features in the story meetings, Walt would have a secretary present, and
Okay.
she would be taking it all down in shorthand, and then it would be typed up. So to see Walt interacting with his story team through this transcription, that's always been one of my greatest thrills. And in fact, I wrote an article about that very thing for an issue of Disney 23, the magazine of
Magazine.
D23.
And you get,
So
if in case anybody doesn't know, you can get the D23 magazine. I'm going to promote them tonight because I think they're fantastic. I am a member. I have my lunchbox up there right behind me on the shelf. D23 is an exceptional support to everything a Disney fan could want. The event in California, and they've done a couple things in Florida, but the main one in Anaheim is incredible. The magazine, that's where I first found you, to be honest with you, as an author. One of your articles that you wrote, that was in D23. And I was trying to remember the other day with my son which one it was, and I can't, because we go through the D23 magazines. We pull them apart, not rip them apart, but because there's so much. I mean, with the people that write for it are so incredible, and the photographers are amazing. As you
sure.
sat there, what inspired you as a writer to want to get into that part of the aspect of Disney?
Well, the Disney came first,
Okay.
before I mean, there was no question in my mind, probably since birth,
Okay.
that I wanted to work for Disney in some capacity. And as a child, I was an artist into high school, so I always
Okay.
took art classes, drew a lot. But as time went on, and when it was getting to be time for college, I felt that my artistic ability was not up to Disney standards.
Okay.
So I had an artistic gift, but I didn't think it was, great enough, because of course Disney hires the greatest artists
Yeah.
available.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, what else can I do? And in the meantime, I had also, because of my fascination for and my passion for Disney, I had read everything I possibly could. And the more I read, the more I saw, the more I wanted to learn.
Nice.
So I, I sort of just in my own mind just gravitated toward the history of Disney, and especially the fascinating figure that Walt Disney was, and all the people that he worked with.
Okay.
So I decided that that was what I wanted to do, was write. And that's how it happened. So the Disney aspect of it happened first. Everything I did in terms of learning about writing and trying to get training and background in writing
Right.
was with the goal of working for Disney.
Very.
So again, I've been very, very blessed right from day one, with wonderful, supportive people that not only encouraged me and helped me, but also hired me.
Would you know?
And,
Now,
and I,
are you a park goer, Jim? Are you one of the park? There's some people that are park people, some that aren't, some that are a mix. Where do you fall in that avenue?
well, I'm everything. I love all aspects of Disney, so I'm not one of those that falls into one category or the other. I
Nice.
love it all. I've written about it all, and I'm very, very happy to live here in Burbank. We're so close to Disneyland, of course. But I think the interesting thing about my background, and I'm more fascinated by this all the time, is that I never set foot in any Disney park until I was an adult. I
Wow.
went to the first time when I first moved here right out of college when I was 21, and I had never gone. I'm originally from New York State,
Okay.
so I had never even been to Walt Disney World, which of course is much closer to New York than here at Disneyland in California.
Right.
So it has given me, I realize more and more all the time, a unique perspective because, and I think it's perfect for a historian because I'm not primarily influenced or affected by nostalgia because I have no nostalgia for, I didn't go to Disneyland when I was 5 and,
Yeah.
you know,
Your story
so
later. That makes sense. Well, you referenced being the books that you read. Let's jump into one of these books real quick. Let's talk about the Disney book. I personally have a copy of this book. I think it's a great book. Just talk with everybody. Moments of the Magic is coming in. Welcome in. Noah Phillips, welcome in. Appreciate you in here. Let's talk about the fact of what this book is, what it's all about, the magic behind it, and everything. I would love for you to share that with our guests tonight.
well, this again is another project that I was very blessed to be part of. Um, it's published by DK, and a lot of people know DK. For one thing, I mean, it's almost like Disney in that sense. Most people use DK books when they're children, when they're
Yes.
students, and because either through their library or the school library, they have these wonderfully, beautifully produced reference books. So they have done reference books on just everything, and they're not necessarily directed toward children, but they're they cover a lot of ground in a few pages, so you can look at
Yeah.
a particular subject.
And you can get, if anybody wants to tonight, just so you know, you can go right into the link. You can in this body of the description of the video, it says "Buy the Disney Book," and you can go in there and click about it. It's a collaborative movie history and world of Disney, from the animations and live actions to the magical parks and attractions. This is legitimately the book that covered everything for Disney for me when I started getting into it with my family. I absolutely love it. Bob and Kelly says, love the cover of that book. Incredible, right? I mean, just the way it's done. Mickey and Tinkerbell kind of in the middle. I love that. That's what drew it to me. A little bit of action all the way around. You can get this in Kindle edition, everybody. Also in, I believe in all formats for that, correct? Paperback and hardcover on that, Jim, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure on that. Yes. Kindle and
Actually-
hardcover. Kindle and hardcover, definitely available right there on Amazon. And this book will give you such an overview of everything Disney. I like. How long did it take you to write this one?
Well, it took us less time than one might think. Even though, I mean, because I don't really know what people know about publishing and how long. I mean, how long would you think a book like that would take?
8 months to a year.
Yeah, so less than that.
Wow.
It was probably 6 months.
Wow. Okay. Very cool.
But DK has their own format, and they have wonderful designers, and they know what they're looking for. So when they approached me about writing it for them, they had their format figured out, and they really needed to, because it does try to cover all of Disney in 200 pages, and that's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say, in 200 pages, we're talking about movie history from the world of Disney. You're going behind the scenes for some of the animated movies, which is incredible. You're talking about the archives in there with everything that you're dealing with. And it covers everything. I mean, you're talking about Disney movies. That's a huge platform to cover. It also includes a couple movie frames in there, does it not?
Yeah, they included from Disney Pixar's Brave. They have some frames of actual film. So that comes right here. But as you said, I'll show a couple of the spreads. And one thing that I was very happy to be able to include was live action movies, because a lot of time the live action movies are overlooked.
Yeah,
So we were able to do Treasure Island, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea,
that's incredible.
Mary Poppins. This is a little bit of an overview for Babes in Toyland to Old Yeller.
I love the fact that there's so much there's so much information in there, but it reads so smooth.
Oh, thank you.
You know,
Well,
it's not overwhelming, and that's the greatest thing when you can sit and read a book and you just want to keep flipping the next page. I love that. I'm a big Mary Poppins fan, so the fact that you had all of the dancing chimneymen down the bottom, you had the penguins up. I love that. Absolutely love that.
and even the Rocketeer. Of course, I'm a big Rocketeer fan, so that was one. When
There's
they
a lot of
said,
people don't remember that.
well, that's anybody who hasn't seen it, be sure to see it. It's on Disney Plus. It's on DVD and I think Blu-ray as well. It's a beautiful
Very
film
well.
and
Did you ever
beautiful
see?
look.
Did you
But
ever
when
see the rocket? Did you ever see that live in the park?
Did,
Did
did
you
I ever see?
see the when Walt had his Rocket Man in the park?
Oh
At the
yes.
That was, I mean,
Not in person, but I've seen the TV.
it's amazing how things with Walt transpired to something he did back in '50s, transitions all the way something that's on Disney Plus and Blu-ray today, inspiration wise. I think that's kind of unique, and how things kind of all the way all over each other. Here we started with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as a ride out there. It's transitioned over to Nemo, and from what Walt did to it's just incredible. And through your works, you tell a lot of this story, of different things on that. That's what I really love. Let me bring it back up to you and I, since we stopped the share there, so you're not on big screen there with us.
Thanks for doing that.
Joey D saying, I'll check out the Amazon link. Thank you, Joey. Appreciate that. We appreciate that. I love everything that you brought with this book, and we're going to talk about a couple other things that you've written as well as we're going through tonight. But one thing I would love to jump over and talk about is step outside for a second. Your comics. You've been involved in a lot of talk a little bit about your comic exposure. It's more than Disney that you've done, which is really something that a lot of people miss because you're so well known for Disney.
Yeah, I have to admit that it is fun to do non-Disney projects, even though, of course, I love Disney and that's my main thing.
Right.
I've been lucky enough to write some Looney Tunes comics for DC Comics because, of course, Warner Brothers owns DC, so they are able to publish comics about Bugs Bunny and his gang. So I've been able to write Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, Marvin the Martian,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
those are great fun to do.
Now you're just doing the dialogue for that, right? You're not doing any of the animation. You're just doing the dialogue for that's still very cool.
Right, and like everything, people don't really or often realize that it all starts with the written word. There is nothing if it's not on the page, it's not on the stage, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're showing the character's personality, which is what people are buying into through your.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that, 100%. I think that's very well said. We do have a quick question. First off, comment. Joey D says, love Looney Tunes. Wanted to throw that out there. Thank you, Joey. We appreciate that. Katie Wyrens says, hey, Pete, I have a question with Jim. In all of Walt's correspondence and notes that you've been blessed to see, did you feel it gave you some insight into Walt's mind, and does anything stand out that you could share? That's a great question.
Well, only just in a general sense,
Uh-huh.
the thing that struck me about anything that Walt, oh, my Disneyland map just fell down. I don't know if that's a sign from above or what.
It's Walt talking to us. Actually, it might be Roy, that we're not saying Roy's name and we're just talking about Walt. Maybe Roy, we're remembering you for opening the park in Florida, my friend. Please don't bother Jim while we're doing the interview. But that's a little bit of insight there.
Yes, indeed. So I'll have to be careful what I say about either one of them.
Yes.
But don't worry, Walt. I was going to say something positive. Anything that Walt said that you either hear about or that's definitely, to my mind, reflected in his correspondence is that he had a nimble mind and a wit and a kindness.
Oh.
So One of the ones, and I think this might have been even published somewhere, is that a little girl wrote to him and saying that how much she loved the Woody Woodpecker cartoons and how he did such a great job with Woody Woodpecker, and Woody Woodpecker was her favorite. Well,
Yeah.
of course, Woody
Disney.
not Disney. It's that's done through Universal, but it was done by Walter Lantz. Now, how funny is it that I've
Oh
always
yeah.
pondered this, that two of the big giants of animation are both named Walter.
Yes.
And actually Walter Lantz started out calling himself Walt, and I think I'm imagining because of the vast popularity of the Walt Disney name, he decided I better not call myself Walt. I better use Walter.
Right.
But at any rate, Walt wrote a very nice letter back to this little girl and said, "Well, dear, I'm afraid you've got the wrong Walter. That's Walter Lantz, and he does a very fine job with the Woody Woodpecker cartoons, and he's a friend of mine. So I'll be sure and tell him that you said this, and I'll pass your letter on to him." So I just thought that was the most marvelous thing.
Well, he had that from everything that I've watched. Of course, I never had the blessing. He passed well before I was born, but from everything that I've watched, all the videos and everything, I love watching Walt's body reactions and facial reactions as he interacted with people in the park. Granted, he had his own way of doing things with his own signature on a card and everything that he handed out, and the little unique Waltisms, as I say. But if you, as you watch anything that is documented, you could see he had a compassion for the people that he wanted them to find that euphoria that he was trying to create, and when he saw it in their eyes, I think it empowered him even more, and that's a very cool thing.
I agree, and you do. I think one reason I react to this is you do hear stories about how he could be so gruff and demanding. But I personally think that the gruffer side of him uh, was primarily to cover up his more sensitive side and his sensitive side. Because
So correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but I heard that from what most of the stuff I've done, you are so much more far advanced in all of this. I heard that was more the gruff side of him was more at the studios while he was working because he held his Imagineers, his team, his secretaries, everybody at such a high level of expectation for where he held himself
yeah,
that he pushed people to do stuff. And he saw, I mean, Walt was an amazing person. I would love to be able someday to be able to say that I just set foot in the archives just because I think I might cry because of what that means to me and the magic that it's done. But the fact of he saw in people what they could be and push them to get there. And I
yeah,
think that was a key thing. I mean, being one of the first person to hire an African American animator to bring in and to push diversity within what he was doing. Yeah, he fought challenges of the union and everything, but I still think he tried to look for the good in everything he was doing till the day he, passed away. And that's kind of why I love him. I'm sure maybe I hope that's kind of what's come from you from your time doing the works on him and doing your archive work. Are you getting that same type of feel, or am I missing it?
no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean the strike that you're referring to that people may not know about is in 1941. Well, maybe 40. I forget the exact date now, but anyhow, the early 40s before
Right.
the war. Uh, he he that's often misunderstood, and part of it stemmed from his own paternalistic nature, which he saw as something good.
Yes.
In the new studio that they built here in Burbank, which basically opened in 1940, he really tried to create a worker's paradise.
Yes.
That way, he wanted his artists to have the best, and that's why the whole place was designed that way. But he was so passionate about his work and what they were doing himself that he sometimes would not understand that not everybody as talented as they were, as dedicated as they weren't necessarily as passionate as he
Right.
was. So they 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 tried to, as workers do, they tried to, get, the benefits that they thought they deserved. He took this not as a business thing or as a worker thing, but he took it very personally. So that's where the trouble stemmed from. But from the start, he said publicly and privately, if our artists want to organize and have a union, he said that's fine with me. He said, I just don't want anybody coming in here and telling them what to do. If they vote for it and they decide and they choose, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, there were other involved,
Absolutely.
and since he was taking the more acrimonious parts of it personally, it's felt like an attack on him.
Mhm.
That's where it got extremely complicated. But
So-
the artists that stayed with him for years and years, for example, the Nine Old Men,
Not only
none of them went out on strike.
right.
So
Kept working through it.
yeah, there's all different dimensions and sides to that sort of thing. But he was very, very devoted to those that were loyal to him, and even after the strike, he hired the people back and continued working with them. The only one he really had a problem with was Art Babbitt. But Art Babbitt was a complicated person, as many artists are,
Yeah.
and he for 10 years before the strike, people would say to Walt, Art is such a combative personality. Why don't you get rid of him? Why don't you fire him? He's always arguing and Walt said, I don't care about anything about that. He's talented, so I want him here. It was only until he took personally that he had a problem. But that's one man.
I know we're having a great interview and in depth when we've got an Art Babbitt call out. That's we're doing something right here as we're digging into everything. I love it. That is awesome. Welcome in Wrestling with Disney. Hello, Nina. We're sitting here with Jim Fanning tonight, guys. He is a internationally known, respected Disney author and historian. Every link for Jim, for everything social media, to buy his books is right in the description and body of this video. Whether you're watching live or on the replay, we do get a lot of replays. Know that you can find every link. If you can't get to the chat, you can definitely get to the description. It will take you right there. As you worked on this, obviously, let's talk about pop culture for a minute, and not just Disney and everything else. You had a book here that originally started with Disney. This is an older book that you have that's available. I actually read this and thought it was very unique. But I want to talk about pop culture because for a second. And you've been involved. Can you share with everybody the gamut? I mean, you're being very humble right now with all the things that you've been involved with besides just Disney. Could you just give our friends just a little bit of info on, hey, I've worked with Warner Brothers and worked with this and worked with that? I would really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I don't think I'm being humble. I think you're giving me too much credit. But I do have a great fascination with, as I said, with all things related to media, I guess you would say. And I think that especially in recent times on my YouTube channel, I've been able to talk about, because I can do what it's like. You have your own YouTube channel, you can do anything you want. So
You can.
I do a great deal, and mostly, there we go, about Disney, but it's also some of my other fascinations, like The Wizard of Oz, the MGM film, Batman, comics of all kinds, animation of all kinds, and I do that through some of the things I've collected, because that's sort of the basic premise of my typical videos, is
Right.
that I'm showing sort of collectible, just so I can
So, guys,
show hope.
if you're watching tonight, you heard him say, and we were going to get to that again. A great writer will take you down a path, and Jim is taking us down a path tonight and transitioning me perfectly. I showed his YouTube channel. His link is also in there directly to go over to it. Tell me a little bit, if you could, since we're on that topic and we're talking, pop culture and everything, with your YouTube channel. Talk to me a little bit about how it came up with your channel. Jim Jim Fanning's Tuglywood TV. Could you talk a little bit about that for me?
Well, yeah, sure. So the as I said, the basis of it is uh, I don't really consider myself a huge collector, only because I do know so many people that are actual collectors and they have vast collections. For example, I do have a lot of comic books. That's probably the main thing that I have because I love comics. I've written for comics, as we were talking about earlier, and I'm just a huge comic book fan.
Okay.
But I don't have very many compared to a lot of people, believe me. But at any rate, I do have a certain amount of things. And I just, it was actually my friend Russ, it was his idea. He said, you have these great, he's very into YouTube and he watches a lot of YouTube. And he said, you should be doing YouTube videos. And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't want to be just sitting there on camera talking, and it's a lot of work and I don't have time to do that. And he said, well, just show some of your collection and talk about that. And I said, oh, okay, now I get it. that I do, because you can on a certain aspect and do 10 or 15 minutes on certain comic books, certain little golden books, certain Viewmaster sets, or what have you.
So, guys, if you're listening to this interview and you're loving what we're saying, go over to Jim's YouTube channel, give him a little love, give him a follow over there, and keep up more after this interview is going on his channel, which we post right there. And again, we're dropping links in throughout the night, and it's available in there. I did want to highlight, Jim, that Nina says Jim is a big deal. Throwing that into the chat. Thank you, Nina. I also wanted to highlight real quick that Nina also said, I can't wait to check out his channel, especially if it's Wizard of Oz covered. I knew she would say that. I know she's a big Wizard fan. And also, Katie Y says, hey, I just subscribed over to Jim's YouTube channel. So thank you, Katie Wyrens. I did want to throw this question here real quick as we're still talking about pop culture and everything. Bomo says, when did you first start writing?
Well, thank you for that question. I'm not sure if you mean professionally or just...
Professionally is what he's asking.
Professionally? Well, I've been doing this since the 80s. And I was very lucky, again, as I mentioned earlier, to have met some wonderful people that, I guess they saw something in me and gave me a lot of opportunities, because that's always what it takes. It's all about networking. It's all about connections, as they say. So I've been doing it right out of college, basically. And I had some wonderful friends, supporters, and mentors that gave me the opportunity, and I learned a lot from them. And right off the bat, I was writing for comics. I was writing magazine articles for Disney News, the long-running magazine. I mean, I read that as a kid, so it was a thrill for me to be writing articles for it.
I love that. As we're sitting here talking tonight, I did want to highlight, guys, everybody, that you can find over on Amazon, the link in there for Jim Fanning takes you right to all of his works that he's involved with. The Jim Fanning available, titles by Jim Fanning on Amazon. And I would encourage everybody, if you get a chance, hit that link and check out some of what he's got going. Let me see what our friend Nina, who popped in tonight, says. Just subscribe and added some videos to my watch list. My husband loves comics, which I didn't know that. But nice to know that. Loves comic too. So we will both enjoy this. I love that. And the Bomo loved your answer to the question, saying, hey, that was awesome. He appreciated that you answered that question. Let's take a... I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, thank you.
Absolutely. Let's transition for a second and let's get out of the printed line and let's head into some of the DVD line, Walt Disney Treasures. You're also involved with this. I thought this was pretty cool that when I was going through all of you to prepare for this interview, and I came across this. I don't have this yet, but it's on our "we're going to get this and I want to see it" list. Could you share with a little bit about this set that you have out there?
Well, for the Walt Disney Treasures line, which I don't remember how many years it ran, but they did quite a few. Yes. The idea that and this was something that Roy O. Disney's son, was very behind. It was to get into the hands of collectors some of these classic shows that weren't necessarily going to sell, 50 million copies like The Lion King did.
Right. Right.
I think The Lion King remains the number one best-selling home media,
Yeah.
movie. But at any rate, if you put out the Mickey Mouse Club from the 1950s, which is in black and white, of course, and in a mass media way, it would be perceived as something that didn't do very well because, modern audiences just don't like black and white, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. But Disney fans do. So they did a remarkable number of really cool, and especially for the hardcore Disney fan, especially for the Walt Disney fan, because I think almost all of it, the idea was all of it was produced by Walt Disney. They didn't do anything outside the lifetime of Walt Disney.
Right.
So they put out the entire run of Mickey Mouse cartoons, Donald Duck, Goofy, Pluto. They're complete runs.
It's an incredible. When I looked at it, I was like, "Wow, the amount of content that's here." Obviously discs are going away by the wayside. And I'm sure that it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if it is or not because I haven't looked yet to see if Treasures is put on Plus yet. But I think at some point this might be something that you never know.
I hope.
That would be a
But-
great thing. It would
I
fit
mean-
right in with everything
Yeah.
you're doing.
Well, luckily you're showing the Mickey Mouse Club, and that particular set is the first week of the Mickey Mouse
Right.
Club. That is on Disney Plus, so we're very happy about that. They have the whole first series of Spin and Marty. That's on Disney Plus. A lot of what was put out on the Treasures is not on Disney Plus, which is a shame. But as you said, hopefully it will be.
Hopefully they come around and realize what it is. Just reading about like Joey just said, I want to see this video. As I was reading about this and telling my wife, I was like, come check this out. And she was like, how do we not even know that exists? We gotta. But again, as Disney people, there's so much out there. You can
Yeah.
every day of your life cross over somewhere, somehow, something you didn't know about. That is amazing, and I'm blessed that we did this interview because I found this. Bob and Kelly saying, "Hey, I'd love to Disney if you're listening." There's a lot of people already saying they want to see this on the Plus. Get it out there. We want to see that as well.
And I have to mention Leonard Maltin because he was
Oh,
the
my
host and also a producer.
Oh,
Probably
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's the host of all of them, and he was the driving creative force behind them.
Okay, I knew he was the host. I didn't know he was a producer as well. That's very cool. I like that. We always like to step outside the box of the whole work gamut here and say, hey, get to know you as a person. We always ask a couple unique questions. One, Disney collections. Everybody collects stuff from Disney. We all do. I've got popcorn buckets around the house and big figs and different stuff. What has it been for you through the years that you've traveled or gone to a park or been at somewhere that a Disney event, a D23 event was going on that you said, hey, I got to have one of those?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I really feel like I'm not even really a collector. I mean, mostly what I collect is publications, which figures because that's what I'm in.
Right, but that's cool.
That's my business. So a lot of comic books, a lot of magazines from the past, like the Mickey Mouse Club magazine of the 1950s,
Nice.
and Disney publications of the past, little golden books. I have tons of them.
Oh, so great, little golden books.
Yeah, the art is just great.
Yeah.
And that carried on, I'm happy to say. They do some wonderful. Sometimes people are surprised that little golden books are still even published, but they definitely are.
Yes, they
So
are.
they
They
put
are.
out a good.
What about,
every-
I mean, parks wise, obviously I know you've been to California because you're right there in D23 and everything. What other parks have you been to? And are there other ones on your bucket list that you haven't hit yet that you're like, at some point I'd like to get there?
Well, it's funny because I've written about all of them.
You have.
I've written about Shanghai Disneyland. Now, have I been to Shanghai Disneyland? No. So I would love to go. I would love to go to all of them. I've been, as you said, to Disneyland. I've been to Walt Disney World in Florida, and I've been to Tokyo Disneyland, including Tokyo Disney Sea.
Oh,
So
okay.
I've not yet been to Paris or Hong Kong or Shanghai, but I would love
we're
Of
blessed. We're blessed when you talk about Paris. We're blessed to have some volunteer executive producers on our channel that do a lot with what we do, and they put out content for us. And I am so amazed at how. Sorry about that. I'm getting people. Don't forget to ask about this. Uh, which I'm got it, guys. I'm on it. The as I look at other parks and the videos and all from there that come into me, I'm amazed at the coloration, the passion. Although it's in a different language, it still speaks Disney, and it's so cool. And I think your article that you wrote on from Shanghai, you did a lot with that. I did read that article, and
gosh,
you were. It's funny now that you tell me you'd never been there because when I read the article, I read it, from somebody's perspective, even though that really had been there because of the way you were very detailed. You had done your homework, you had it laid out, and when you find a quality author that knows how to paint his canvas, because that's what you're doing. You're painting your canvas with words and literature. You submerge us into that, and I think you've done that with a lot of the works that I've found with it. I love the fact that you're part of the archives. I think you bring or support with the archives. I think you bring a different dynamic to it. I think that's cool. Well, the big question I have to ask you is, you've been to the parks, Disneyland a lot. You've been there, I'm sure, during the holidays. Are you a Christmas person in the parks or a Halloween person in the parks?
I'm both.
You're
I,
nice. You are Hallowismus. I love it. That's awesome.
yeah, I love Christmas. I'm just a Christmas nut. So I love Christmas, and there's nothing better than Christmas at Disneyland. So it's just the best.
Love that.
Um,
Love that.
and I also love Halloween. Uh, I'm more of a Christmas person, but I absolutely do love Halloween, especially the more innocent aspects of Halloween. I'm not so much. I mean, I do like horror films, but not so much like slasher films and all
Right.
that.
Right.
So I really love the fun, innocent side of Halloween, and of course, that's Disneyland or any of the Disney parks. So
I'm very jealous because you get the overlays out there for both Christmas and Halloween. So I am jealous of that, Jim. Throwing that out there. Nina says, I was wondering if Jim has any Disney characters films he will collect publications from as a priority. That's an interesting question.
it's a great question. Well, I do really love the. I think I might have one here. I really
Oh,
do
I
love
love points
the.
of reference. Oh my God, look at that.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. So this is from 1951 when Alice in Wonderland was originally released, and I have done uh, a video on these at the
Holy
YouTube,
Toledo, look at that.
and it's really one of my favorite things. Are the comic book adaptations of the classic
Oh,
animated.
wow.
So
So cool. Did that come out with the movie?
yes, this
I
is
brought up
from
the wrong
19.
one here. I got so excited I brought up the wrong screen there. I'm sorry about that, Jim. Didn't mean to do that. Wow. I brought up my
Okay,
other review. Wow.
that's
I love
so
stuff like that because it's timeless. It's
yeah.
truly timeless.
And this was republished over the years, but this particular copy is from 1951. So a lot of times I will have the reprint, and I don't care about that. It doesn't have to be like from the original year, as long as I have it to read. That's all I care about. That's true of any
I
comic
love
book.
that.
I'm
Love that.
not, again, that's why one reason I don't really think of myself as a collector, because a lot of comic book collectors, they must have the original. They're
Right.
not so interested in reprints. They want the original, but for me, reprints are
And
just great.
they're definitely worried about the grade. Whereas
They
for
are.
passion, if you're collecting for passion differently, you're collecting because you're holding something in your hand that is incredible from the 1950s of one of the most iconic stories told by Walt Disney. And
Right. And for me, this is in really good shape, but
it is.
for a collector it really wouldn't be. Like this the cover here is
Right.
torn, a little bent, and it's a little ragged, you can see. But
I
I
love it.
don't care.
I love it. I think it's great. Bob and Kelly throw out a question for Mr. Fanning. Which Disney character do you feel you most identify with? Well, when you're writing, who do you identify with most as a Disney character?
Well, the character that I've written for the most, now it's a different, this is writing for the characters as opposed to writing about the behind the scenes. And I have been able to do storybooks as well as comics. But oddly enough, the character I've written the most about is Winnie the Pooh. And he really is my favorite Disney character. I mean, I have several, but he's definitely one of them.
Very
And was lucky enough to write many comic book stories about Winnie the Pooh. And he is a wonderfully positive, loving, caring character. And I wish I was more like him, actually. He's such a friendly, loving, unconditional love. He really just cares about his friends and tries to help them, and while he's helping himself to some honey at the same time. So
obviously, well, got to take care of yourself there as well, for sure. I love that. One other topic I wanted to hit as we're coming to the top of the hour with you, and it's been an awesome time to sit and get to know you. Is if we could talk about it for a little bit, is magazines. You've been featured in so many magazines across. Is there any that jump out at you from all your time in writing all the magazines and work you've done? Obviously, we talked about D23 tonight and different references for some of the pieces that you've done.
Well, I really do feel lucky, as I mentioned earlier, to have written for so many of the primary Disney magazines. And I would say especially Disney News, as it was originally called, then it became Disney Magazine. And those were the precursors to Disney 23, which is now the magazine. So I'm writing for that too. So you see, I'm a lucky guy. But as I was, as a little kid, I was reading Disney News magazine. So it was a thrill then to actually write for it for many years. So that was one thing that made me always very, very happy.
Love that. So as we come down to a final thing, we always do a couple quick questions with our guests before we do a final thought of the night. I guess first question is, and I don't know if you can share or not, is there a possibility for some of our friends that might be attending D23 that there may be a Jim Fanning sighting this year?
Well, I don't know that any of that has been revealed or announced.
Okay, so let's leave that one alone.
I'm not sure.
You're okay. That's the same thing RC said last week. So we stick with that. We don't cross Disney lines.
Right. But all I can say is that I have presented at the D23 Expo in the past.
Yes, you have. What was real quick? What was that like, being surrounded by that much energy, being a part of it since it started? I mean, that's Jim. That's iconic to me. When I sit here and sit back and think about things that are iconic, the opening of Walt Disney, the opening of Disneyland, the opening of Tokyo, the opening of Paris. Oh yeah, okay. Well, they're all up here, but there's other things that are there. When Mr. Smith put together the archives and opened it up, iconic. D23 for fans out here, iconic. What was that like to be a part of that from the get-go?
Well, it was very exciting. And one reason is, and I'm sure some of your viewers have experienced it, it really opened the archives and the studio to D23 guests or members.
Yes.
So many members have taken the studio tour. Many members have gone to the studio theater to see a Disney film screened on the lot where it was shot. Many members have taken a tour of the archives. So that was very exciting. It's always very, very exciting to see Disney fans who are able to experience some of that. I do have to say, funniest things that happens to me almost every single time I'm in the archives, I'm sitting at a table working and looking through, I'm working on some article or some book or something, and I'm looking at files, and people will come in to because they have public, if you're on the lot, they have public display, and that's in the reading room, as they call it. Inevitably, people ask me questions. Because since I'm sitting there working, they assume that I'm an archive staff member.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always get a kick out of that. So if I know the answer, I'll answer it.
I
But a
know.
lot of times I'll say, well, I could try to answer that question, but I don't actually work here.
You're just
I'm,
for the support. So
but
let
you
me,
can ask that person over there with the name tag.
yes, look for the name tag. Let me ask you
Right.
this as we're going through. If you had a chance to write for Walt himself, you know, what would you want to do? What would you want to write? What would you want to do that you could put in Walt Disney's hands?
Wow. That is a great, great question. Um, I think I would try, I think I would want to do something like Marty Sklar did, which
Ooh,
was, of course, he was a writer. That's what he
yes,
was.
yes, he was.
Those that don't know that. So he was able to crystallize things about Disney and put them in wonderful ways that Walt obviously appreciated because he always called on Marty.
Yes, he called him Marty a lot.
Yes. So I would like to do something like that where I was writing about Disney and what Disney is and what it means to people and have Walt look at that, and that would be a
That is
thrill.
very cool. I love that. Have you had a chance to stand in the in Walt's office out there? The
Yeah.
recreation. Can you
Yes, I
share for a second what that feeling was like to you?
I describe it as a religious experience.
That's incredible.
Very, very spiritual. It really was. I knew I was going to be thrilled and happy and excited, and I was, but I was not prepared for the truly deep down core of your being emotion
Yeah.
of, because for those that may not know, the archives restored Walt Disney's office to exactly as it was in 1966, exactly as he left it.
Yes.
So it's not an exhibit, it's not a recreation. It's it's exactly Walt's office. It's where it actually was. They brought the rooms back to the way that they were then. The walls, the
Yeah.
setup,
Had
every
to redo the walls and everything for the mini kitchen and everything to because they had
yeah,
moved it around and Dave Smith had really detailed everything to a T. As a follow up question, did you step off the red carpet that day, or did you follow the guidance and stay on the little red carpet as you went through? I always have to ask that to people because somebody wanted to step off that, but they didn't also want to disrespect Walt. He just, I don't know what I'd do. Looking at everything with his desk and the trinkets and unique things behind him of his daughters and his kids and the characters turning back behind. I believe it's behind for the piano and the snow globe is there. And
yeah. Well, if you remind me, Pete, I took pictures, or pictures were taken that day, so I'll send them to you. I put them up on my Facebook,
oh,
but
love that.
that was a number of years ago now.
You,
So if you remind me, I'll
you
send
know
them
what I
to
would
you.
love to do if you would love to do at some point so we have a Friday night show. It's Disney news and merch that we do with Chip and Co. And I know Chip and Co is a huge fan of you, by the way. I do know that. If you have a Friday sometime, we do it a little bit later. It's 10 o'clock Eastern time, so it's a little bit later in the day for you because you're in California time. I would love for you if you could, if I could have those pictures to use. But if you could come on one Friday night and just talk about what you saw and everything within that picture with our audience, that would be awesome. I would
Oh,
love
I would love to.
that. Would be
I
fantastic.
I lucky enough to go with my very good friend Mike Buckoff, and some Disney fans do know him. He's done presentations as well. He works at the Disney Photo Library.
Oh, cool.
So one thing that I do a lot of, and this to go back to the DVDs just for a second,
Uh
the
huh.
primary thing I did on the DVDs was image research.
Okay.
So the photos that you see in the galleries and the bonus material there, and also in the documentaries, that came from my research. So I do a lot of that, and even though I'm a writer, that's a big, big, big part of my career is image research.
Love that.
So I worked with the Disney Photo Library, which is part of the archives, but in a separate facility.
Okay.
Quite a bit. So Mike is I've worked with Mike a lot over the years, and he's a very good friend of mine. So he took me through Walt's office, and if we do
I
use
would
the
love to
photo,
do that. Yeah, we can talk about that after the show and get a plan for when we do that. The final question I always ask, and I'm going to ask it right after I do this recap real quick. If you're coming in tonight for the first time, or this is just a rehash of you coming in on Tuesday nights. Either way, we're glad you made it here. If you've been here live or on the replay, thank you. You can find all of the links for our friend here tonight in the body description of this video. Again, his books are available over here on Amazon. You can find all of his writings. Check out that Walt Disney Pop Culture Legends. That's really unique. The Disney book is there along with everything else that Jim has had his hands on throughout the time. You can also find all of the links to Jim's social media, his YouTube page here. Check it out. I see Jesse's dropping the links. Thank you to the moderators for doing that all night long. His YouTube page is here. You can jump over to that. Let me bring that up one more time if you guys don't mind. That's his YouTube page right here coming up on the screen now. It's Tuglywood TV over there. You can find him, everything there. And, of course, also over on the archives with D23 that he's been doing and on his own website. So much magic over there to be found. Again, all those links easily and accessible to get to. And let me jump back over this way. Final question that I have for you before I throw it to you for a final thought of the night is the one that we always give to everybody: 6 degrees of Walt Disney. My viewers are always interested to hear how close can you get to Walt Disney. We've gotten down to 1 a couple times. We haven't gotten anybody yet that's gotten 0 with Walt. But where is your degrees, Mr. Fanning?
well, I wish I could say 0. He was before my time, but I'll start with a teaser. It's definitely 1. It's 1 many times over. But before I say that, I feel compelled to tell you and your viewing audience that be careful on that Amazon page of mine, because what people might not know about when you're an author on Amazon and you set up your page, they decide what goes on there.
Okay.
And they put books that I have not written on that page.
Okay. So make sure it's written by Jim on the Amazon page when you're buying.
And if something looks good, great, go for it. Whoever wrote it, but I didn't want to give the idea that I wrote everything on there.
Absolutely.
Because when I set it up, they started putting stuff on there, and I don't know what made them think that I wrote it, but I didn't.
Okay.
So I just wanted to be honest about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So to get back to your great question, I've been very lucky over the years to know, not only interview, but also become friends with, because they were very kind people. Mark Davis, Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnston.
Wow.
Bob Gurr.
Oh, my Lord.
You had mentioned Margaret Carey before, who was, of course, the model for Tinkerbell. I know well. So I've been very, very lucky, and it just blows my mind every time I think about it that these people knew Walt Disney himself.
I think we get to 0.
Very close.
I think we might get lucky enough to get to 0, because after we did Kimberly, and I know everybody that follows us knows who Kimberly is. Kimberly reached out to me and said that she had spoken with Margaret on a recent, they were somewhere together, and she had mentioned about the interview and how much she enjoyed it, and she was and that Margaret said she was interested in doing our show. So I'm waiting to hear back. I think I'm hoping after D23 maybe I'll get it, because that would get me to 0, and I might fall out. Jim, did you know Roy E. Disney? Did you know his son? That's very cool.
Yes, I was very lucky to speak with him several times, and he was a very, very, I think this is the way he comes across when you see him in, documentaries and such. He's a very kind, very down-to-earth man, tremendous human being, and a great reflection of his father and his uncle.
I love that. That's amazing.
When we lost him, it's funny to think now how he's been gone a while now too.
It's hard to believe,
It really.
And I think that's partially because the magic of Disney stays with all of us. When you go to the park or go to whatever you're doing with Disney, it rekindles, and you don't realize. Like somebody was talking to me the other day, and we were talking about, of course, Disney owns Marvel. We were talking about the Black Panther. And I said to somebody, did you realize when this comes out, we said goodbye to the original Black Panther, and I'm not sure how Disney's going to tell that story, but I know they'll do it with respect and tact. But it's hard to believe he's been gone for that amount of time that he is or so. But
Um,
let me throw it over to you for a final thought of the night from your side of the artist studio in Burbank, right outside of Walt's office, Mr. Fanning.
Beautiful downtown Burbank, huh? Uh, well, I don't really know what to say except that Disney has been my lifelong passion, and I know that's true of so many of your viewers and for you too. So it's always a great honor, and one I try not to take for granted that I have been lucky enough to uh, share some behind the scenes stories that maybe not every Disney fan knows. So I love putting Disney fans in touch with the what's behind it, and especially not the mouse but the man who started it all. So
It's
that's
amazing,
my
it's amazing because somebody drew a picture of a mouse on a napkin on a train after falling on his face. Instead of giving up, he said, persisted. And here you and I are sitting talking today where we probably wouldn't have if not for that simple little gesture.
exactly blows my mind all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say again, thank you for coming on. We're getting a lot of nice comments of people saying how much they enjoyed your interview. I think it's incredible when people like yourself who share the magic through your own unique talents. It's incredible the way you put words to paper and spread the story and paint the picture as it comes to life. We're grateful for what you do and do that. If you ever need a lackey on a day you're working at the archives, I'm willing to be a lackey of any sort. You can yell at me, throw things at me. You can do the whole George Costanza thing. I wouldn't care. But I love the fact that you're doing that and you're such a respected source for that. Please know that you're always welcome here on our channel. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this tonight, go over to his YouTube page. Give him a little love, little follow. Stay up with him. Another nice comment there from Dad Builds. This was amazing to listen to. Thank you for sharing, Mr. Fanning. We appreciate you guys for listening. If you're having a good time tonight and you've enjoyed this interview, whether live or on the replay, share it out. Let more people know Jim Fanning was here and they could hear a little bit about him. We would really appreciate that. Jim, I thank you for coming in tonight. And hang tight. We'll talk for a minute. Everybody, we'll be back next Tuesday evening. We're going to sit down and find some hidden Mickeys. That should be a lot of fun that night. Until then, always do the one thing we always tell you. Be kind and helpful to all those, just like Walt would have wanted to do. We'll see you next Tuesday night for another episode of One Night Only.
Thanks, Musketeers, for joining the party. We'll be looking for you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye, all.